All right, it's Thursday, November 9th. This is an end of the day SPY recap, and today we end up with a 3-day, an outside day that took out the high the previous day and the low of the previous day. Price action started out near the highs of yesterday. And at a key purple line target area that we've been referencing. If you look at the weekly chart after that green big bar, we expected it to take out that high, but right out of the gates, opening price action started lower. That signaled a potential failure developing. It came down initially, we'll get into this in a minute, and then paused, and then eventually made a move past the halfway point of the prior day, which in many cases, projects to the outside day, the low of the prior day, and that happened in this case. Yesterday we did that for a little while, but as it turns out, price came up and there was never really a secondary signal to reach the outside day. Today there was, and we'll get into that, but it's not... It was pretty much expected after this big run-up with exhaustion risk, and seeing that after this big green bar, you weren't, even though we were green a little bit the first 3 days of the week, there wasn't much momentum in play. So again, you're kind of anticipating an eventual pause and pullback, and today we got it. I mean, it could have paused and obviously started momentum to the upside, but you're looking for it either way. And if we go to the opening price action, you can see here the pre-market range between the blue lines. The very first bar out of the gates went down and then followed through lower. So there was certainly no momentum to the upside. So this was the high of the day, the first bar. And you could see here there was a sell signal to try the short buy the puts. It came down right to the pre-market lows, which was this blue line, and it didn't follow through from there. So I shot a video how I bought puts here, scaled out, broke even on the second half of the trade, small gain, but then you had you were looking for possibly another secondary sell. And again, my methodology is one push, two pushes all the time, kind of that second push always related to the intraday high or low. So this was kind of the intraday low here, and the question was, coming up back to the halfway point of the first bar, getting a red reversal down here. I bought puts again, discussed how I scaled out down here, and then holding on. You had a very nice, once it kind of held in this zone and didn't bounce, which really you never thought it would after that big drop, even though it paused a little bit, reached the halfway point of the prior day and then worked out to that outside day to the downside. We also took out the three target. You can, once you're coming down here, you see how close these three targets are all next to each other. So that's why once you started down, this is what you were kind of anticipating, and there's no reason really why it can't get to this next target tomorrow, into this gap and everything else. And what's going to happen then is this, one day to go in the week, it'll close this. But if we head down there, assuming we do, we will close with kind of a shooter bar up here, and that will at least project for a little lower into next week. Again, I don't necessarily expect a 2-down week to come all the way down to that green bar, but it still could be a bit of consolidation. We can have like maybe a push down, push down, push down. We'll see. That's going to kind of be the next sign as to what's really developing the big picture. If we get the 2-down week, let's assume we close red and follow through a little bit lower. Do we just kind of not really eat into this green bar too much and eventually get a 2-up week to get excited about this monthly chart, which technically today gave us a 2-up signal? But it's possible also that this is just a big these 2 months in a row are consolidation, and we could be at the very high of a range, and as time goes on we can work down back to the bottom of this range. Or is this going to be with a little over half the month ago, something where we just pause here for a second, this green month stays in force, and we eventually work up to those highs? Hard to say. What seems to be developing, though, is a little bit of a pause here on the weekly chart that should follow through a little bit into next week, and we'll understand a little more about the potential for upside breakout from this area. Or is this going to be more of a deeper pullback that's going to require much more of a weekly reversal to the upside to even think about the upside again? So at least for tomorrow, we know the only way we get an up move tomorrow is if we get above the midpoint of this red bar. So keep an eye on that. As long as we stay below there, we're going to expect lower. We have the weekly continuity lower. We're going against the monthly green. But again, it is possible, as I look at this chart, when I kind of look at a monthly chart that makes at least 1 and 2 pullbacks, I want to see that next month be green in order to really get comfortable back to the long side. And we still have plenty of time to go in this month, to find out if we're going to be, green and a new high type of thing. So unless, if we just kind of fall back in this month and don't really get any kind of, a nice green, follow through bar to the upside, then I'm going to kind of consider that almost a red downward move for a few months, just pausing in here, and maybe starting the year we start down. So a lot it's going to depend on how this month ends. For now, it's green and it's heading higher, but we kind of reached a key target, and this could be a zone where maybe, the rest of the month doesn't want to follow through all that much. So a lot's going to depend to me in the big picture after 2 months of a red, whether we close with a green, month at a new high, relative to that month or not. So that's something I'm keeping an eye on, but we have plenty of time for that. For now, it looks like the weekly chart is going to likely, kind of close a little bit of a shooter bar, which should have a little follow through in some form to next week. And we'll expect a little follow through, even though it's a 3-day, that could just be, higher highs and lower lows, and can come back up through the range unless it break, and if we don't see it getting above the midpoint of today, then I'm expecting it to kind of follow through lower because there are some targets down here. And like I said, that last day of the week means likely we're going to close red and follow through into next week a little bit. So I'm not anticipating a move back to the upside. If anything, a little more downside. We'll just see how how much downside develops is going to be the key to all these, expectations going forward. So anyway, very good day today, in my opinion, to try a sell. There was no buy opportunities, nothing above the first bar high, nothing above the pre-market highs. Everything was biased to the downside. And given that, you're at exhaustion risk, it's not surprising that eventually we got this red bar in here. So one push down, good trade here. And then there was a secondary trade down here that, took you once it broke through the midpoint of the prior day, you had all those targets down here. So a lot of opportunities to the sell side today. We'll see how things go tomorrow to end the week.